Hey folks on YouTube, this is going to be a from the field video that I'm going to share with you today. So some of you may be aware 90-something% of all the content I create goes up at fromthefield.tv, and that's including all the vlogs for the creation of this farm. They're all there. I don't post to YouTube much except for live streams and the odd video here and there. And so if you want to check that out and see all this stuff in detail, the creation of this farm, what's going on with my new off-grid homestead and all that, head over to fromthefield.tv. Also, a quick reminder for From the Field members and YouTube folks is Dakota Cohen is doing the live stream. He's doing my live stream this week at Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Same channel and everything as you're used to. Just head over to fromthefield.tv and leave a comment in Dakota's video there, just like you do every week for me. And he will get to that. I think he's going to be talking about some pretty fun stuff and answering some great questions. Anything permaculture, broadacre, regenerative ag, animal related, perennial, long-term crop related, Dakota Cohen is your guy. He is a total master of broadacre agriculture. He's got some of the longest swales in the world on his quarter section of land up in central Alberta. And so go and check that out. But for this video, we're going to do a walkabout of the farm here. I'm going to give you guys an update of what's going on here and what's to come. Enjoy. Alright guys, today in this video I'm going to give you kind of a crash course update on what's been going on here at the cooperative farm, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening on the off-grid homestead as well. But a lot has happened here on the co-op farm in the last 2 weeks. We've had about 3 or 4 really big push days, and big push is a term myself and a bunch of other farmers I know use, where it's like when you've got a lot to get done and you just have to push through it, and so you'll have really big days. And this is often, you know, a springtime thing for a lot of farms. Because this farm isn't fully commercial, though we do sell some of our stuff, but not much of it. It's not the intent of being commercial. But because it's, you know, it's kind of a part-time farm, you know, there's the 12 members here, and none of this is done for a job. We're doing this farm for sustenance to share between our members. We're not here every day, and so we sometimes just have to like push through big days where we get a bunch of the members to show up and we just crank through a bunch of stuff. And that's what happened over the last couple weeks. So kind of give you guys a tour. Maybe I'll start up at the greenhouses and show you some of the things that have happened on the farm over the last couple weeks. So I've been really busy because I've been working to keep things moving forward with my off-grid homestead, and so it's been going back and forth with my architect and my contractor, sourcing materials, also getting things ready up there for certain stages of people to come in and do things. Right now I've been pushing hard up there to get the beginning of my power system going in. So it's a 20 kilowatt solar array with 3 different ground mounted panels with 16 panels each. They're larger panels, and they've got these 3 big concrete footings that are 18 inches deep, 3 feet wide and 6 feet long for each rig. So there's 9 of them in total. I've been pushing to get that done. I'll probably have a video on that soon enough too. And I've got a lot of brush clearing to do up there to get in my garden. So that's some stuff that I'm going to be doing shortly, and then I've been keeping moving forward. So my situation lately is it's been insane for me between being a family guy, but also keeping things moving on this farm, which is what we're going to talk about in this video mostly, and keeping things moving on at my urban homestead because we're preparing to sell that. So we've been paring down our house, keeping the gardens going. You know, whoever is going to buy our house is going to be inheriting a massive amount of produce and awesomeness in the garden. So we've been doing that and keeping things moving on the rural homestead. So it's been really busy. And then, you know, here at this farm, it's been, I come in here for limited times, and I've got no shortage of labor, which is really nice, but most of the labor on our farm isn't skilled. I'm really the one with most of the skills, or pretty much all of them. Some members have more skills than others, but it's been a challenge for me because I have to come in and then do a lot of little tedious things, which I'll show you shortly, like, you know, greenhouse stuff, fixing up greenhouses, installing irrigation, and then I'm coming here in a limited time. So right now I'm trying to do everything I can in one day. And so I'll just tell the members, okay, you guys come down and we will get as much done as possible. So I'm going to be here all day. Whoever can show up, show up. And so yesterday we had quite a number of crew here, and we got a lot done. We planted this greenhouse full of peppers, and I did some direct seeding. We also planted onions. We'll go down there, but just to kind of give you an idea of how it looks for me, it's like I come here, and when I put a day in here, I'm literally running back and forth for 8 hours because I'm delegating to people who don't have experience, meanwhile trying to do things that are technical, like screwing in handles for the roll-up sides on the greenhouse, building these end walls, whatever it is, setting timers on irrigation, doing the direct seeding, while also training some of the other members to do those same things. So it's been insane. So that's what's been going on. So let's just start here and kind of work our way down. One thing I should probably talk about is our greenhouses. So some of you may recall, if you're from the field members, you know, but if you're not a from the field member, you might not know, but our greenhouses here got totally smashed in, I think it was about maybe early March or something like that. We had a crazy windstorm, and we didn't have any strapping on them or anything. They were really bare bones, and they just didn't handle the wind, and so they got totally smashed. So we had to rebuild all three of them. This one, this one, this one. We didn't have to rebuild every single bow, but we had to reconstruct most of them. So that really set us back this spring. And it was kind of a signal that we need to make the greenhouses stronger. So about a month ago, we came in and we started doing strapping. So we did toe kick boards on all of them, and we did side strapping with 2x4s. And then we've got those channeled in, so we're no longer doing ropes for tying the poly down. Did things like that, and then we've started doing proper end walls. And we've got two types of end walls on these greenhouses. On this main thoroughfare here, which divides block 1 and block 2, on here I decided to do nice doors that basically just open up. And the reason for that is that on the shoulder seasons, when all of our crops are only in the greenhouse, we're just going to come in and work in this little thoroughfare. So I wanted nice doors that were convenient to go through, and so we put a little bit of extra material and time in to do end walls like this. And they're not totally finished, but that's okay. Well, there's nothing in this greenhouse yet. Nothing's going to go in here for a couple weeks, so we'll be able to finish this one up in that time. This end wall isn't completely closed in either, but it's not cold any longer, so it's kind of fine. We have the roll-up sides functioning, and then these scissor doors at the end function pretty good. So this greenhouse stays warm even with this end open, but it won't take long for some of the folks to come and finish this up. But that's the idea behind the walls. And again, you know, we built these greenhouses very cheap because they're totally custom. I think all in all right now I haven't looked at the budget recently. We added the lumber, which is ridiculously expensive right now, and it was actually cheaper to buy cedar than it would have been any kind of treated wood. So we used cedar for the strapping. But these greenhouses are really only worth, they might be around $3,000 right now. They are 17.5 foot wide interior dimensions, so we can get 30-inch beds with 18-inch walkways, and they're 55 feet long. Bow spacing is 5 feet in between, and so there's a shot of our end walls there. And I built these really simple scissor doors that I'm quite proud of. I just kind of improvised it because the greenhouses we use, they're custom. We used these coupling joints that are commonly used for like garage, those kind of outdoor garage things. They're not really garages, like you park your car into them for the winter, these like simple canopies. So we used these for our coupling joints for the greenhouses, and then we just have a 5-foot purlin in between, and they have these bolts that you tighten. And so for my scissor doors, I just put a couple carriage bolts through some of the steel we use for these greenhouses, which is just chain link fence top rail, and these just swing open and closed. And I figured, well, let's just do a simple end wall on the exterior, because we're not really working to come in and out of this. This is just entirely for ventilation. And so that's how these work. We've got a 2-foot T-post in the ground, and then at the base of the posts we've just got a little loop there with a carriage bolt in, and then when that unhooks and goes down, it just wraps around this, and that keeps this door closed. And it works quite simply, and just, you know, another little eyelet bolt there, and just some basic wire to hold it up. And so it's really simple. And it's way more inexpensive to build a scissor door like this than it is to build a wood frame door like that has hinges, handles, a lot more channel lock. And just with the price of wood right now, it's expensive to build those. But all in all, these greenhouses are still fairly cheap. So that's kind of the gist of what we did on these greenhouses. When I get back down there, I'll show you the really simple DIY handles that I had welded for me. But these tomatoes went in about 2 weeks ago. This was another big push day. We had most hands on deck and just cranked these out. 1 foot spacing, 4 beds. We've got them all tied up and staked, and they're flying. They're doing really well. And then another house of tomatoes here. So it's about 400 tomato plants in total with both. And so that's should be enough for our whole crew. We did just indeterminate varieties this year. Last year we did some determinants, but this year we decided to go more intensive, hoping that we'll get, you know, maybe we'll get about at least a few thousand pounds off these 2 greenhouses. So these are the roll-up sides that I constructed, and these handles are really simple. Here, I'll show you one that's where it's not finished. You can see it better. Basically, I just took a 1-inch piece of EMT, which fits right into these 1 3/8. I think that's the interior dimension, or maybe that's the exterior dimension. 1 3/8 top rail. So 1-inch EMT fits perfectly in. And then just welded, I had a bunch of scrap rebar. So just 2 5-inch pieces of rebar for the handle, and then a little self-tapping screw or a Tech screw goes through there. And that's your roll-up side. And then we've just got a little wire strapped around there that holds the handle, and that's it. Very simple. So that's the basic mechanics of those greenhouses. Another thing we've done recently that's been really nice is spent about $300 on a 300-foot roll of 10-foot fabric, and we had to cut 2 feet off, but we basically fabriced our whole main thoroughfare here, which is great because we were mowing this a lot last year, and the edges would always get weedy, and then that always ends up in the field. So our entire field at least our block, not the pasture next door, is fabricked. All of our thoroughfares or open areas between the blocks are all fabricked, and it really reduces weeding and keeps grass down and just reduces maintenance. And you know, for 300 bucks, this is a fairly inexpensive thing to do. Yeah, we put landscape pins every 3 feet in here, so let's just say we spent 400 bucks on that. Well, then now we don't have to maintain this area at all throughout the year, which is great. It's just one less thing we need to do. Because this farm, we're trying to make this farm as passive as possible, that just makes life easy and is less things to delegate and get people to come and do. So yeah, this greenhouse will be cucumbers and a few other things soon enough. Those are started now, but they're not ready to be planted. So the fact that we don't have the poly on this one yet is no big deal. You know, one thing we've been doing on this farm, or that I've been trying to do, this is something I've been trying to do just in my life in general because of all the different things that I'm balancing this year, is just prioritizing every single task in sort of a triage way, in that, does that task need to be done now or not? Because and how I justify if something needs to be done now is there long-term benefit now? So if I get this task done now, will we see a long-term benefit? And so I basically stage everything that needs to be done on the farm and on my homesteads in that way. And it's kind of just like it's how they do triage in the emergency rooms, and it's a really simple way of prioritizing things. And I've really had to do that this year. So the fact that this one isn't finished is just because of that. It's like, okay, well, we need to do these now, and we only have time to do these. We did these other 3 tunnels. Actually, this one was the one that didn't get wrecked. So we did this one and this one, and we've left this one. The other challenge we have up here is quite windy up here, especially since our neighbor cut down his orchard and replanted a new one. We've noticed significant more wind. And we have short windows of time where it isn't windy, where if we don't get the poly up when it's not windy, it can't go up. And so that's another reason that one didn't get done so quickly. But so this greenhouse is now planted out. This was all done yesterday. We've got our peppers in here, and this was kind of funny actually with these peppers. A friend of mine, Tyler, who runs a salsa company here in Kelowna, I've done a YouTube video with him in the past. He also grows his own peppers and tomatoes. He started a bunch of the same peppers we had. These are called California Wonder. We also have other peppers, hot peppers and jalapenos, and we also have a Purple Islander that I started. And I've been starting these things later and later every year, but Tyler ended up starting his 6 weeks before. And these were supposed to be a field pepper, and I was over at his house last week, and I said, shit dude, your peppers are huge. And I noticed that they were the same variety of peppers that we had. So we actually swapped. I gave him my California Wonder peppers that were 6 weeks later than his. And I since decided to put our peppers in the greenhouse. So it actually worked out quite serendipitously. I've got peppers that were 6 weeks ahead of what we started in this greenhouse now. And then these will fly once we get, once they're in the ground a little bit, they'll start really going. And we'll have really early green and red peppers, which is going to be awesome. And our other peppers will go in that greenhouse, and they'll actually go outside of the greenhouse on in this bed here on the outside. And I just decided to irrigate this with wobblers for now, just because we put in such a huge day yesterday. I was here for a total of 8 hours. And so I just decided, I'm just going to put the wobblers on this for now. That way I can water my direct seeded stuff well. I did a half bed of beets and a bed of carrots. And it was just easier. And we didn't finish these shallots, and so that way I could get some water on them. It was kind of just an impulsive decision to do that. And so that's blocks 1 and 2 there. Coming over to block 3. This is, for the moment, this is a fairly intensive block. And this block will see 2 crops in it. We've got 2 beds of sweet peas. These are, I think they're Sugar Ann, single row These peas were soaked the night before and drained and rinsed, and they were kind of semi-sprouted before they were planted. Basically 1 pea every 2 inches for 50 feet. 2 rows. We used 7-foot T-posts hammered into the ground. We actually had to drill these in with a Hilti, as we've had to do with our greenhouse posts, because this ground is so rocky. There's basically about a foot down, there's basically just bedrock in some places. It's quite insane. And so we actually literally had to get a Hilti drill out to drill some holes for these posts. But those are our peas, 7-foot T-posts with, this is that concrete mesh material, 6-inch squares. It's cheap and it works well for trellising, and then you just use some simple tie wire to tie them up, and so those are our pea trellises. We will also do the same this year for our beans, and those have actually been started in the nursery, and they'll go in at a 4-inch spacing, single row, with a trellis system just like this. And I grow Blue Lake beans and I love them. So we got 2 beds of kale here. This stuff was all planted over a week ago. 2 beds of kale, winter boar, 3 rows. They are, I think these are 16 inches apart. And then a bed of spinach. And then we had a mixed bed here, arugula, mustard, and radish. And again, you know, this isn't a commercial farm primarily, so we do things a lot differently than I had done in the past with Green City Acres. And this other half of the block here is staying tarped for now, but this is all going to be crops. If I'm going to plant anything here, which I haven't fully decided on yet, it has to be out by mid-July, because this whole block is going to be turned over, and this whole thing is going to be our winter potatoes. So these entire 12 beds will be our winter potatoes. This year we're growing Yukon, Warba, Red Pontiac, and Kennebec, 4 varieties. And we actually just started yesterday in block 4 here. We just started 3 varieties. We did 6 beds, 2 beds each. We did Warba, 2 beds, Red Pontiac, and Yukon. And these will just be some earlier potatoes for us. And this year we actually did 2 rows. So last year I did a single row of potatoes, which was okay, but I felt because of the space between our beds, we could try a double row. So we did 2 rows 16 inches apart, or maybe 14 inches apart, and we dug those as a trench, pulling the dirt mostly in to the middle and then some out. And then we put our potatoes in 1 foot apart, and then we just covered them up with the outside dirt, keeping a little bit, sort of like a mohawk of dirt down the center, that after these come up about an inch or 2, we'll use that center dirt to do the first hilling on them. And if we hill from there, we can dig dirt out of the center to hill on to the 2 mounds on the sides of the bed. That's kind of my strategy there. It's a new thing I'm trying. I saw a friend of mine do this last year, and I thought, that's a great idea. And they had an insane yield. So that's what we're trying here. This whole block is watered with wobblers. So these are mini wobblers we use. I've talked about these in detail in the last year's vlogs. If you go into the From the Field vlogs on this farm, the new farm vlogs, you'll see all of that. I covered all this in detail. But these are fantastic, these sprinklers. So they're 12 and a half feet from the inside, 25 feet apart, and 12 feet from the outside. And those 2 sprinklers is enough to water this whole block easily. And I soaked these in really good. So anyways, we got 6 beds of potatoes. These 2 beds are going to be shallots. We just didn't have time to finish that yesterday with the paper pot transplanter. Yesterday I spent a decent amount of time training some of the ladies on the farm how to use the paper pot, and so now they're going to come back today and finish these 2 beds. But these 4 beds here are red wing onions, which are my favorite onion. That we decided to only grow red wing onions this year because they're the best keeper, and they're very prolific, they yield good, and they taste great. So that's what we did there. And so that's now our field is basically, it's over 50% planted out. And we've got 1 more block 5 at the end has yet to be planted, but all of this stuff is started. So most of this block is going to be winter squash and melons, watermelons and cantaloupe. We've got acorn squash, some spaghetti squash, some butternut squash, delicata squash, I think 2 beds of cantaloupe and 2 beds of sugar baby watermelons. And then I think there might be a bed, according to the farm plan, according to the farm plan, there might be 1 or 2 beds here of beans, summer beans. And that's the whole field. It's amazing how fast it happens, especially when you're not doing, when you're doing longer season crops. You know, you just do big plantings at once, whereas if I was market farming this in the way I did with Green City Acres for years, I would have been incrementally covering or planting out these beds. But usually by mid-May, any market garden in the Northern Hemisphere is going to have their entire field planted out by mid-May. And then at that point, you are into your sort of rotationary phase, in that you need to have enough crops coming off the field so that those beds can be turned over and replanted. So I always found that with 10 years of Green City Acres, by about the 14th to the 18th of May, every single bed has already had 1 crop in it. And so to succession plant anything else going forward, you have to make sure that your timings are lined up enough that you've got beds that are ready to be turned over so that your new succession plants go into them. On this farm, it's a slightly different strategy because we're not so concerned about high rotation. Even though we're doing a lot more variety this year, you know, things that are new. We didn't really do spinach last year. We did some overwintered spinach, but it got screwed up because of our greenhouses. Peas are new, beans are new, peppers are new. Last year, we only did potatoes, onions, cabbage. We did half a block of corn. We did winter squash. We did a few odds and ends here and there. But this year, because our membership increased by 7 members, and a lot of those are couples, so like I say we have 12 members, but we really have 24 members in a way, and that's not including kids. But we changed a lot this year, and because some of our members don't have gardens at home, we decided to dedicate a little bit more land to things like salad greens and baby root vegetables and peas and beans and things like that. You know, for me, at my homestead, my urban homestead right now, we still garden so much. For me, the only things that I need from the farm are things like cabbage and onions and potatoes. But again, because we have all these new members, we're doing more stuff. So, I mean, it's still really that way because I have so many things planted at my urban homestead, and maybe I'll do another tour of that to kind of show you guys what's going on in my gardens right now. But, you know, even with my gardens at home, as much as the space I have, I still don't have enough space to do all of the cabbage and potatoes and onions that I'd want. Maybe the onions, because you can pack a lot in a little space, but definitely not potatoes or cabbage, or definitely winter squash. Even last year we did a lot of cantaloupes and melons in our gardens. But so this year, you know, we went from last year to this year at this farm, we went from a handful of varieties to a lot of varieties, a lot of diversity, which is actually more fun, certainly more work though. You can hear the neighbors spraying, so I'm probably breathing in chemicals right now. It's amazing actually, this farm that we're on is a certified organic farm, and it's amazing that even with certified organic, you can have a guy spraying chemicals, you know, that's probably 500 feet from me, and this farm can still be certified organic. Anyways, that's another discussion for another time. But yeah, that's pretty much what's happening on this farm right now. Next things that are going to happen, there's not really going to be a big push for a little while. There's just little things that we do to maintain the farm. You know, the farm's a bit of a mess right now. We have kind of odds and ends and things laying around. So some members will clean some of that up, and we'll stay on top of weeding at this point. So we want to make sure at this point somebody's coming in at least once a week and just running a stirrup hoe up and down the walkways and making sure any beds with exposed soil are getting just a little bit of a skiff with the stirrup hoe, or we're hand pulling things if we need to. But we really want to stay on top of our weeds, especially at this time, because if you can stay on top of your cultivation in the beds by just giving it a little scratch with the stirrup hoe, you can really mitigate your weed pressure going into summer. Because as everybody knows who farms or gardens, when summer comes, that's when the weed pressure comes. And so if you can stay on top of it, especially at this point when things are just starting to emerge and germinate, you can really save yourself a lot of time going forward by not letting those weeds establish because when a weed's established, then it becomes problematic. I can see dandelions in all of my neighbors' properties. Those are all going to blow in here at some point. But if we stay on top of keeping our soil nice and scratched and cultivated, we'll make sure that we don't get dandelions to that stage where you got to pull them out from the taproot. So we're actually going to be utilizing the in between the greenhouses. When this farm was originally laid out, you can see this was 2 beds. We actually had squash in these beds last year, which was a mistake. It didn't work well, especially at this density. This is 18-inch spacing, single row. What I'm going to do this year is forfeit 2 of the beds and rototill 1 bed down the center. And then that bed is going to be, I think it's going to be pickling cukes on one, and I forget what it is on the other one, but we're going to convert that into a single bed. So that's going to make less beds in this block. And I might do the same here, because we do have 2 beds here and then we've got 3 feet to the fence. I might convert this into a single bed too. I haven't quite decided yet. This is where we just kind of throw shit that we're not using at the farm at any given moment. A lot of our bent bows from our windstorm, you can see, we're going to be taking those to a scrap metal place to get some money for those. And yeah, it's been kind of a storage site. We have the end on the field there is where we store a lot of stuff. And so we're going to be kind of cleaning things up over the next little while and consolidating things. So that is my quick farm tour of what's going on here right now. Stay tuned for more videos. Again, most of the stuff I post is up at fromthefield.tv. So when we built this farm, every stage of the way was documented. Put it in posts, put it in the main irrigation line underneath. If you're curious about any of that stuff, go into the new farm vlogs at From the Field, and they're all chronologically dated, so you can see, the nice thing about posting it From the Field opposed to YouTube is I don't need to use flashy titles to get views. I just simply put a date and the video says what we're doing, and so it's very descriptive. And so you can go back and you can even watch us building these greenhouses and all of that stuff is all there. Also, just a reminder that Dakota Cohen is doing the live stream this week. He'll be using my channel, so same time, same channel, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursday. Dakota Cohen will be answering your questions, so if you have any questions for him, he's done a lot of these great open consults, and he's got some really good ones coming too. Go into the comments of the video posted for Dakota up in the, if you look in the, just on the homepage of From the Field there, you'll see it. And click on that, go to comments, leave a question or a comment for Dakota, and he will get to that on Thursday. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next video.